Good morning. I wanted to go over a few of the problems that are similar to problems you're going to be doing today and Monday in the order of operations section of your course content. This is a kind of a step above the normal order of operations. You're evaluating for a variable, so you're doing a little bit extra beyond the normal order of operations. This isn't stuff you haven't done before, though. This was in seventh grade content, I believe, to some extent in sixth grade. So you should still be familiar with it, even if you don't quite remember, even if you're not an expert. So let's just go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is write over here the order of operations because we do need to follow that. Fortunately, in a lot of the problems here, it's you actually don't have to think about it a lot, but we still want to be talking about it and thinking about it. You guys remember we always start, let me go and write this out. I just use this. There's other ways you could talk about this. This is what I use because it's what you guys are usually the most familiar with. It's not always the most helpful, but we can, if we talk about it the right way, it'll work. All right, so a lot of people remember PEMDAS. I write it like this because I always want to remember, and you should have heard this before. Multiplication, division, or equals, you do them left to right. So even though the M comes first, doesn't not mean you always multiply before you divide. You do them left to right. Whatever comes first in the problem, you do first. Same thing for addition and subtraction. So when I think of PEMDAS, something that you should have heard of before, I write it like this so that we can remember that there are things that are equals effectively. We always start with parentheses and any other grouping symbols, parentheses, brackets, stuff like that. And then we go to our exponents. I'm pointing at the screen with the pen. You guys can't see that. Let me use this. We always start with parentheses. That's what the P is for. Then we move on to any exponents that are in the problem. Then we multiply and divide, and I put them together because they're equals. That means we do them left to right. That means if division comes first in the problem, you go ahead and do that first. Then we do our addition, subtraction, same thing, left to right. That means if a problem has a subtraction component and it comes first, you do it before addition. So now we're just going to write out this problem here. So 4 times the number q, so 4q. And you guys have learned in middle school that to do 4 times q, you just put them together like that. 4 and q, you don't actually put a times sign. And then we have plus 25. Now we're evaluating that when q equals 5. So what I'm going to do very first thing is I'm going to take out the q. I'm going to copy this exactly, but I'm not going to put in the q. I'm just going to keep everything else. So I took out the q. And I'm substituting in, I'll switch colors so you can see what I'm substituting, the value that in this particular problem, they said that q equals 5. So where I took out that q, I'm substituting in a 5. And that's all I'm doing for the first step. A lot of students I've noticed want to skip that part. They don't want to rewrite it and substitute in the value. And you know, on little problems like this, a lot of times you'll still get them right. I'm not saying that it won't work. But part of being successful in math is developing really good habits. And doing this is one of those things that I would call a really good habit. And it's important because you're going to get to problems where they're much longer, much more complicated. And if you haven't learned to do the step of substituting in that, in this case, a 5, those harder ones are going to really get you. So my motto with math is practice it the right way on the easy problems, even though you may not need to, and you're more likely to do it correct on the hard problems. So I would suggest doing this every single time. Now we're going to follow the order of operations. Now we don't have parentheses. I know I put in parentheses here, and so some people are saying, "Oh, there are parentheses, Dr. Bingham." No, we don't. What I mean with parentheses is parentheses with like multiple operations. I only use the parentheses to show that we're multiplying 4 times 5. So that doesn't count. It's parentheses is another way to show multiplication, and that's all this is. Then I'm going to go to exponents. There are no exponents. So there's no parentheses, no exponents. So now I'm going to check for multiplication, division, left to right. So in this particular problem, I noticed that we do have a multiplication component. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. 4 times 5 is 20, and I'm going to bring down the 25. Now, once again, in a problem like this, I'm not saying you couldn't just do it all in one step. You probably could, and you would probably get it right. The reason that we're we're doing it step by step is because, once again, math is about developing really good habits. And if you learn to do the really, the important things on these easy problems, you'll do them a lot more effectively on the hard problems, and you'll be less likely to make stupid mistakes. When you miss things in math, let it be because you don't understand it, not because you made a stupid mistake. All right, we're done with multiplication division. Now we're going to look at addition subtraction. This problem has one addition component, one part that's addition. It's 20 plus 25, which has a sum of 45. So that's our answer. So we're going to substitute in and then show each step on our way down. All right, let's look at this one. So I had to rewrite this, and I apologize. That's a plus sign, and I know it's hard to see. It's when I did this the first time, it didn't look like that, but I don't know exactly what happened. So we're going to do the same thing that we just did. We have 5 to the third power divided. I'm just going to rewrite it so you can see it better. So it looks like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this exact same problem, only I'm not going to put in the p right now. I'm going to leave that out. Since I'm not multiplying, I didn't put in parentheses like I did in the last problem. You could, it wouldn't be wrong. And we know that p equals 3. So I took out the p and I'm going to put in a 3. That's my first step. And now we're just going to work it out. I'm going to start with parentheses. There are no parentheses. So I'm going to go to any exponents. There's one exponent. It's 5 to the third power. Remember, 5 to the third power means that you have 5 as a factor 3 times. So 5 times 5 times 5. That's 5 to the third power. 3 5s multiplied together. 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5 is 125. And then just like before, I'm going to copy everything else down. I'm going to copy down the divided by 3 plus 2. So I've done parentheses, I've done exponents, now I multiply, divide from left to right. In this case, I have a division component part of the problem. So I'm going to start with that division. 125 divided by 3. 3 is about 41. I paused the video for a second if you noticed that. I didn't want to show you the boring part of that. It's about 41.7. It was not my intention to make something that had a decimal, but you know what? I'm going to keep it because it's important to know that sometimes problems do end in decimals. I was in the middle of several things when I changed the problems that Connexus originally had, and apparently I changed one number just not quite right, not quite like I wanted to. But we have 41.7, and if you've done that, I just did it on a calculator, and it actually was 41.66666667, so I rounded up to 41.7. All right, so we have 41.7 plus 2 would be 40. I'm just going to write it here. It doesn't seem to be staying there. 43.7. And then we're done with that one. Hopefully that will be the only one that ends like that. I think it will. I feel like that's it, but we'll see. So here's the next one. So this time we have q equals 2. So I'm going to rewrite this entire thing here, only I'm not going to put in the q's. I'm going to hold off on those. So we're going to start with parentheses 34 plus 18 times, and let's go ahead and do this since it's such a long problem, I don't want to miss it. We know that q is going to equal 2, so I'm going to put a 2. Go back to the red here. All right. Notice in the first problem I used parentheses to substitute in. The reason I didn't this time is because we already have parentheses and I felt like that would make it more confusing. So I just used a dot because we know that dot in the air means multiply. It wouldn't be necessarily incorrect to use another grouping symbol. I just chose not to. All right, and then we have a 3, and then we have another q right here. Then we know that q is 2 plus 7. So I've substituted in the 2. That's all I did in that first step. Now we're going to go through our order of operations. We know we always start with parentheses. Then we go to our exponents, multiply, divide, left to right, add, subtract, left to right. Gosh, let me try to fix that. Gosh. Okay, so we do have parentheses. So let's go ahead and start in our parentheses. I'm going to use a couple of colors to make things stand out since there's going to be kind of a mess here as we work through this. So looking at this parentheses here, the first one, I notice that I have addition and multiplication. So I'm going to go through the order of operations within that parentheses. So I'm going to look and say, well, does addition come first or does multiplication? What I notice is multiplication is above addition. So I'm going to start with this. So I'm going to copy down 34 plus, And I'm going to do 18 times 2 first, which I believe is 36, I think. 36. If we want to check that, we could go ahead and just go to calc. And this is, I would recommend just using a calculator, and if you're trying to sort out this math, because it's going to, the point, it's going to speed you up. The point is knowing the process of using the order of operations, not whether you can do 18 times 2. I'm going to copy everything else. I'm going to take my time and go through it step by step. I wouldn't have too much of a problem if you started working on the other parentheses at the same time, if that makes sense. But I'm just going to do one at a time this particular time. All right, so I'm going to switch colors so that each line kind of stands out on its own. All right. So I'm going to keep going in that same parentheses, and I notice I have an addition part to it now. So I'm going to do 34 plus 36. Let's see, 30 plus 30 is 60. 4 plus 6 is 10, so that 60 plus 10 would be 70. Minus, and I'm just going to copy this down exactly as it is. Let's switch colors. I may run out of room, so we'll see. So I'm still not done parentheses because there's a whole other set of parentheses over here. So I'm going to go jump over to that side and do those parentheses as well. Let me go ahead and copy down the 70 minus, and I'm going to work right here. What I notice is I have an exponent and addition. And in the order of operations, exponents comes before addition. So I'm going to go ahead and do the exponents. 3 squared means I have 3 multiplied by itself. 3 times 3, which is 9. I have to keep my parentheses because there's still another number inside, so I can't get rid of them until I'm down to just one number. Now I notice I have subtraction and addition. Normally, we would do them left to right. We would do whatever comes first. Hopefully you've noticed that the addition is still in parentheses, so we don't follow that procedure. We're going to jump to the addition, but that's because it's in parentheses, and parentheses always comes first. 9 plus 7 is 16, so we have 70 minus 16. And once again, this is something you could easily write out and just do, but I'm just going to go ahead and do 70 minus 16 just to speed us up a little, and we'll get 54. I would write that right underneath, but I'm out of room, as you can see. What I like about a good order of operations algorithm, where you're really following all the steps correctly, should make sort of a V shape till you get that answer at the bottom. Some of the ones like this are kind of tough. So do your best. Let me know what you need help with. If you get a low score on this the first time, let me know so that I can try to help you out, and then we can try to get you to redo it.